National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.
A very good evening to all of you who are watching this virtual panel discussion. The theme for today is COVID-19 Livelihood Lessons, Adaptability and Resilience. This is the panel discussion brought to you by the National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya. And the purpose of this is to reason together with the members of the public in tackling the COVID situation. And today we have reason to celebrate because as India crossed 100 crore or 1 billion vaccination. My name is Kit Shankliang. I'm your host for this panel discussion. And before I bring this team group of panelists, I have an announcement. Last week we had a Quiz Wiz 2.0, and later during the panel discussion, we will be announcing the name of the 3 lucky winners. So stay tuned. And yes, to begin with, we all know that COVID has not only taken away lives, but has taken away livelihood. Meghalaya has been hit hard, jobs lost. The workforce that has been doing well in the cities have had to return home. Insecurity seems to be hovering, and the economy of the state is fragile. But the question is, how bad is the state of the economy? And are we resilient enough? Do we have the willingness to adapt? Can we adapt at all? So these are pertinent questions, and we look up to our panelists for them to share their inputs and opinions. So now let's get straight to introducing our panelists this evening. We are fortunate to have with us Mr. Mark Stone Lifelong. He's the entrepreneur and founder, CEO of Avenues. Mark, welcome to the show. And
thank you, Kit.
Thank you. And we also have with us Ms. Jemima Marak. She is the program head of Anand Foundation. I come to know that they work in the Rebhoi district and also in the Garo Hills district, and their focus is rural livelihoods development. Jemima, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kate.
And we also have with us Mr. Kunal Mordani. He is an entrepreneur and a director at Gold's Gym Shillong. Mr. Kunal Mordani, please, we'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thanks, Kit.
Okay. So without further ado, I'd like to just go straight away to our discussion, starting with a question that I'd like to ask Mark. Just to give us a context of how COVID has impacted Meghalaya's livelihood. I know this is not really your hardcore area of economy and all of that, but you are an entrepreneur. So has it been difficult for institutions like yours or any academic institutions during and after the second wave? And we would really like to know, Mark, share with us those challenges and how your team handled them. It's been quite a journey. 2020, it was like that. In 2021, and over to you. I mean, just share with us those stories.
Kit, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and of course to the National Health Mission for putting this wonderful effort together. There are so many perspectives to consider when you're talking about economy and well-being, and I'd like to for the moment disconnect the two. When you're speaking about the state of the economy, or you're speaking about incomes and livelihoods, there are many stratas of income, many income groups, and many communities that must be spoken about against the larger context and the backdrop of what Meghalaya is now, after having, I'd say, starting to emerge from the second wave after it has hit us in the last 6 months or so. I think we can all agree that none of us were prepared for the impact that this would have on livelihoods, especially in rural Meghalaya, especially with the fledgling enterprises that were slowly starting to take shape in our urban contexts. I'm speaking about something that I'm deeply passionate about, as you know, which is the entrepreneurship ecosystem. It was very, very encouraging to see how, despite the pandemic and despite whatever was going on to shut down business and shut down livelihoods, what I was very encouraged to see, and I think what we all witnessed, was this resurgence of a youth movement that was led towards volunteering. There was so many young groups that just wanted to make a difference. It was very difficult working against the grain because volunteering entails being on the ground, being in connection with other human beings, and because of the pandemic, all of those factors had to be taken into consideration. But what was beautiful to watch was how a number of voluntary initiatives began to take shape, and how commerce, and I can only speak for the entrepreneurship ecosystem within the urban suburban contexts we have operated in, how commerce was not the primary driver when the pandemic hit Meghalaya. The primary driver for young people and for entrepreneurs building enterprises was, how do we contribute? How do we make a difference? How do we instill a sense of support for clearly what was at the time a gap in human resources, a gap in process management, and a gap in frameworks, as everybody, not just the state government, but the world governments were trying to grapple with the challenges of addressing something this large. But I do want to circle back to livelihoods, and I want to say, as far as the past is concerned, there are many lessons to be learned. But let's talk about what's happening now. We're in a context where we are quickly emerging to what looks like normal. If you take a very quick walk down, and I want to refer to our own work right now in the rural areas with youth and our tribal boys and girls, we run interventions, as you know, that help to create a sense of well-being, confidence, and clarity as they head in to embrace the challenges of life. And we've been doing this for many years now. This is our 19th year in operation. But over the last 2 years, that disconnect that happens with young populations, especially within our own rural areas, makes it impossible to help them understand how to cope with the challenges of this very uncertain world now. And whether we like it or not, the education frameworks, the entrepreneurship ecosystems, the livelihood generation gaps that have been attempted to have been plugged by government just could not be enough, because eventually one has to rely on self-reliance, the ability to just get out of this rut and try and understand how to get back into regular living. So when you talk about youth and in the urban populations versus the rural populations, and you talk about livelihoods and economy, there's one very common thread. And the common thread is, we are just dying to get back to normal. Each of us wants to make sure that we are in a position where, accommodating what we consider to be the new normal, we're able to at least allow livelihoods to kick off again. And I must commend the amazing commitment of the health department in driving the vaccination mandate home to so many of the population. We must also understand how it has taken vaccinations, tests, and the willingness of our population to want to emerge from this period of uncertainty and choose to stare down the barrel of this problem and say to ourselves, enough is enough. It's time to put food on the table. The government's been supportive. They've opened up channels of livelihood once again. Hours have been extended. I think our positivity rates have greatly fallen. The number of positive cases in the state are on the decline. Everybody is playing a wait and watch game on what will happen after this festivity season is over. Fingers crossed, things should be safe and good. But livelihoods that took a beating last year, no matter what policy was aimed at, for example, uh, helping plug the gaps with what entrepreneurships were lacking, entrepreneurs were lacking, lack of capital, lack of working cash, lack of the ability to pay off salaries, keep teams together. There were certain policies that were put in place by the government, central and state, to support fledgling enterprises. There were certain policies put in place which I would not like to comment on, but there were definitely certain focus areas, especially with workers and with people who were earning daily livelihoods. And of course, the deployment and the mitigation of the extent of losses was something the government was looking at. Now it remains to be seen Was the deployment successful? How were the gaps covered? And most importantly, now we're at a situation where we all need to emerge and get back to work. The question now
Well,
is, what is the new normal? How do you concentrate on bringing in
yeah.
a new normal into livelihood generation?
Mark, before I bring in Jemima in, you made very pertinent points there. On one hand, you're talking about resurgence of youth and movements and voluntary, interventions. On the other hand, you're also talking about the reality of dealing with, depression. And let's imagine COVID did not happen. We already had this problem of, hopelessness and unemployment and not really sure of what next, especially for the youth. So now that COVID is around and you had that problem, so as a solution oriented mind, how do you deal with that? I mean, or organizations like yourself, and how do you work along with, government entities to look at what next and what is the future? So I just like to hear, what are your thoughts on that?
Kit, are you looking at me to address that?
Yes, if
Okay.
because
I think
we're looking at a situation where the hopelessness has already hovered around, and then you have COVID on top of that. And I'm sure we are very resilient, and then the adaptability is in. So, but how do we actually take that step forward?
I think this is a really beautiful question, Kit, and I'm so glad you've asked me this. A very large part of the work we do is building emotional resilience amongst young communities. I think it cannot be understated that, as it is, there is this narrative that has emerged in recent years that is now quickly changing, of course, that our young people are not able to adapt to the challenges of the real hard world once we hit the urban contexts, once we hit working environments.
Mm-hmm.
But over the last decade or so, there's been a lot of young people who have chosen to head out, have successful careers, come back and give back. And you can see that emerging in the young entrepreneurs who have now decided to start up everything from bakeries to reading corners to little training institutions to enterprises that are gathering hydroponic activity for urban farming to help families get food from farm to table. There's just some beautiful initiatives that are now started emerging.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say that when you're speaking about our own youth, there's always been this focus that has had to be laid on well being, on resilience, and on the idea that your aspirations can be more than what our previous labels have allowed us to believe we can become.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as we head out of COVID, I think this is a beautiful time for young people across our state to understand that if we're able to leverage what we are calling new normal, and we're able to and with a lot of commitment, get back into the real world, we can actually help to change the narrative of what it means to be a young person today and lead the charge by choosing to be three things. Number one is agile. You've got to be able to quickly understand that your skills need to adapt, your skills need to grow, you have to learn new skills. I mean, I'm talking about our own children, my own kids in the house, our own students that we teach. Schools have seen this happen. How digital skills that were not prevalent even a year and a half ago are now the order of the day. It's a different thing that not everyone has access to these devices, and that's a gap that definitely needs to be addressed, because pandemics could happen, crisis could happen, but education and livelihoods and skilling cannot stop. But yes, the resilience piece that you spoke about, being emotionally resilient enough to understand this is a period of global change, it is a period of great challenge for many communities around the world, not just ours. The ability to accept it, to embrace it, and yet choose to move on, imbibing with an agile mindset what now needs to be your skill sets. Number
Mm-hmm.
one would be your ability to know that personal awareness, the space between you and another person, will forever be changed. The hugs, the kisses on the cheek, the high fives, the handshakes have now had to very politely leave the door. The second is the
Mm-hmm.
ability for educators to understand, within the classroom setting, that whether you like it or not, ventilation, open air, facilitation has now become the order of the day. You have to be able to remember that taking young people out of the context of the four walls of a classroom is more important than ever before. And third, of course, is revisiting the idea that aspirations before pandemic hit us were normal. You'd want to be someone in government, you'd want to be someone in the armed forces, perhaps you wanted to be someone who was preparing for a civil service examination. Now, with the emergence of the new normal, there are brand new skill sets and brand new livelihoods in alternative talents, in alternative platforms that can now be put to use because everyone's online. So livelihoods in that context, I just want to end this small little segment with a note that says this: livelihoods have emerged and changed for everyone across the planet. What used to be the norm isn't anymore, which means that our youth from our corner of the country, especially from Meghalaya, have a chance to redefine how the world and how the country looks at us. The skills that we are so good at using, communication, talent, alternative performance, stage presence, with a little bit of digital skills built in, can actually lead to very sustainable alternative livelihoods if government ecosystems, entrepreneurship ecosystems, and the larger framework of a youth policy that would support that can aid in the ability of a talent to shine as a livelihood. I'd like to leave it there. There are new livelihoods around the corner that must be embraced.
Mark, thank you very much. Wonderful insights, and we'd like to thank you. This is the time that I'd like to bring Jemima in. Jemima, you come from the rural areas, and then you worked closely with farmers in Ribhoi and also in the Garo Hills. Please share with us your stories of how COVID has impacted rural livelihood. And can you also share with us, those challenges working with grassroots farmers? Jemima, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Kit. It was very interesting listening to Mark speak about the youth and some of the challenges that are being faced at the same time, are being addressed so wonderfully. I believe that the youth of the state have really used this time to shine. There's a lot of beautiful examples, from in the rural areas where, as Mark had mentioned, people coming together to volunteer to distribute food, to reach out to the people who are in the far off, isolated places. These are some of the scenes that I can speak of because I've seen them. Working with, in the rural areas of Marnar. Now, the community of Marnar, even though we are very well placed, commercially speaking, we're close to the state capital. We are close also towards the Garo Hills, and then we have towards Jaintia. So we are quite centrally located, and we also the people of Ribhoi also supply a lot of vegetables and rice to the state, at the same time also to Assam and to Calcutta and other places. So we are a very rich, naturally speaking, very rich place. However, during the pandemic, because it was thriving so much or on the commercial activities of selling the produce, the rice, the vegetables, and suddenly for that to be cut off, it affected a lot of families. When you have so much, you've been producing, you've been working so hard the entire year, as you have been every year, with the spade in your hand, your entire family sweating and slogging off in the fields. And then suddenly all that hard work to have just been affected by this pandemic. It was a really, really horrible time for a lot of families. I think there was so much of wastage. Um, the vegetables, because there's been a lot of fresh vegetables that has been moving from that particular area that we've been working in. Many of them had to throw away, either their vegetables or feed them to the pigs, or just basically let them just rot. Many of them develop the barter system where there's some vegetables that you don't have. You give it to somebody else who does, and then take something that you need. So those are also some of the things that we saw. The other thing that we were able to see during the pandemic or the lockdown was also, vegetables being sold at throwaway prices. 1 rupee, 2 rupees for something that was worth, 30 rupees, for example, pre-COVID. And then at the same time, you see the consumer in, say, Shillong, paying 50 rupees for the same thing, for the same item. So, there's such a huge gap. Somebody selling, the seller selling, say, a product worth 30 rupees at 2 rupees, and the consumer buying the same product, which was worth 30 rupees and paying 50 rupees. So those kind of gaps we could see in a lot of places. Another thing that we, some of the farmers, what they had shared was that, even though they have a lot of rice and vegetables in that place, say, for example, there were still some items that they needed or they depended on, from, say, Assam, like salt and sugar and tea or oil and things like that. So shortage of that. So they had to there was a lot of adapting to newer tastes, acquired tastes of, say, just boiled vegetables and things like that. So they said it, while maybe nobody went hungry per se during such a time, financially, everybody was affected simply because a lot of the families depended on the money coming in from the sales of their produce.
Yes.
So,
I'd just like to ask one question, Jemima, because you mentioned all of these challenges, but is there a system in place? Perhaps your organization had done something or alongside government where, we've learned from these lessons, and should, God forbid, but should the third wave, get bigger than the second wave, and there is another lockdown, which I hope it will not be like that. Is there a system in place, a resilient system in place to tackle all of this? Perhaps you can take another 1-2 minutes to just respond to the question before we come to Mr. Kunal Mogdani.
Well, yes. Now we started, see, the first thing is that because of the wastage, that was one of the first things that we wanted to stem, and we wanted to address. So how to kind of, increase the shelf life of the produce, how not to kind of waste a lot of stuff, say like tomatoes. And so we started talking about solar dryers and other methods in which they can at least save some of the produce that were being thrown. We have built about 4 solar dryers, and we are in the process of training and showing the farmers there and the youth there how it is done and why it is profitable for them, how to save their products. We're still at the nascent stage of this particular project. We are slowly trying to, as Mark had also shared, digitally enhance these solar dryers. Equip them with sensors to kind of regulate time in order to kind of make it a lot more effective and efficient for the farmers also. So we're collaborating with a lot of other interested partners as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Jemima, and very pertinent points made there. And thank you for sharing your stories and those innovations. I'd like to bring in Kunal now. Kunal, you are an entrepreneur and also a gym director at Gold's Gym. So please share with us, the stories from your world. What have we learned from COVID, vis-a-vis the wellness in the fitness industry? Over to you.
Yep. Hi, Kit. Hi, Mark. Hi, Jemima. I first like to thank NHM for giving me this opportunity to come on board and discuss this very, very important issue of COVID-19 against the adaptability and resilience. So when when I was got in touch with the NHM team, and when the word resilient came, it sounded like India and resilience is a big they're best friends with each other, it seems like, because Indians are so resilient. Whether it is a terror attack, a flood, or an earthquake, we just go on and on and on. So that's the great part about the country, and we've got people who are there to support you and put you together. And like we've seen during the COVID time also, before the government could even come into an act, we had people on the ground, religious organization, different communities, NGOs, everybody there to just help each other. So that's the great part about our country. So that's where resilience comes in, and we keep on surviving every challenge. With respect to what Kit had asked, that what challenges we face in the wellness and in the fitness industry, was both these industries were the first to close down and the last to open. So basic challenge was the crowd over there, and everything was linked to so many things, and there was so much of negative around the fitness wellness industry that we had to face the maximum music out of this. So with due respect to containing the virus, there was a large amount of uh, awareness amongst everybody that fitness is also a key to fighting any kind of virus, not just to COVID-19, but yes, any virus. If you want to stay fit, so you can easily get rid, and your symptoms may not be severe if your immunity is strong. So that was the good side of it, but people were not ready to understand. And the health people who were making the SOPs were not quite sure about whether it sweat spreads the disease or not spreads it, and the air conditioning in the gymnasiums, the circulation and everything. So there was a lot of gray matter here. So that's why nothing could be concluded and say yeah, fitness is good, and if it is maintained in the right way. So we've learned a lot of lessons throughout this 1.5 year. And like last year, we were not very confident of starting our facility. But this year we were eager because we knew that with the proper exercises and the all the safety precautions, you are safest at the gym rather than being in Police Bazaar or GS Road. The gym is a much more safer place than anything else. So that's the main lesson we've learned out of which. And the basic adaptations, like everything, has also taught us to be more hygiene has got into it, and more of discipline amongst members has got into it. And everybody coming in also realizes that their safety is taken into consideration. And out of that, a lot of technology, like Mark said, this last 1.5 year has boomed the IT part, where everything has gone virtual, and apps being developed, and constant engagement through the apps with the members, getting in touch with them, showing them workouts to do at home if they don't want to come to the gym. So that's kept them engaged and not out of their routine. Because as everybody knows, the last lockdown, half of us were just cooking food in the house and posting all the new types of coffees and recipes and everything. So everybody had put on some amount of decent weight. So everybody thought, no, it's time to just get back to your normal routine and
Well,
start
that
doing
business
some
goes back
exercise.
to that business goes back to the gym, because now there are more people wanting to go to the gym to lose that weight.
Yeah. So that's like a win-win for me.
Yeah. But thank you very much, Kunal. I mean, you've shared very valid points there. This is the first part
Right.
of the panel discussion. We are going to bring you back in. And of course, we've heard wise words from all these three panelists. Mark said resurgence of youth and communities, and Kunal said mentioned the resilience and the country that we live in, India, and we've heard some really interesting innovations during COVID, Jemima working with the farmers in the districts that she represents. So we'll be back, but before that, for the people who are watching this program, if you have questions, you seek support or help of any kind, please call the toll-free number 14410. It's right there on your screen. And you can also download the Behavior Change app. You will get all the information around COVID-19 in Meghalaya. Okay, so that's also there on the screen, the right side of your screen. And of course, make sure your second dose is done. If you're vaccinated once or twice, show solidarity by making this frame. There you can see your profile frame on social media, and make sure that you make this frame your social your frame for your profile for profile frame on social media, and become an NH champion. So follow the instructions on the screen. Okay, so it is time that we slip into a quick break. We'll see you on the other side.
Hey Kongdeng, where to? Seems like somewhere special.
Yes, it's special. I am very proud to be a part of India's largest vaccination drive.
Are you not worried?
Why will I be? Instead, I should be worried if I'm not vaccinated.
But people are saying so many things.
People will always have something to say.
Will it really protect me from COVID?
Vaccination doesn't mean you are 100% COVID proof, but your immune system will be strong enough to fight even if you contract COVID-19 and it is not life-threatening.
I heard it has severe side effects.
There may be mild side effects like fever or chills or maybe headache, but that's normal. It will wear off on its own.
But is it really safe?
Of course, it is absolutely safe and backed up by medical professionals. Doctors, engineers, politicians, and many more are chosen from all sections of the society to be vaccinated.
Yes, you are right. I will also get vaccinated immediately.
Don't waste your time anymore listening to fake news and gossip. Take a decision to get vaccinated with confidence.
National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.
No, không em ta thì
Kam biang pi.
beliau di sodiau ba.
Kada ko lang ba ng patsim ketika ya da ng COVID-19 ta. Kada ko brio ki smo atapien ta ban ki ka taksi jonga.
Dia boleh pa pemilih cemeta encek kita.
Kata ken kwa tama masmo klumar jemut banle ko online ter bas ko lang bangam dan te ko phone ko biang bandan ng internet.
Hentip saya. Bagi sorka kalau sedang menaitika kan dan kamban bukupa. Bisulai bed pedang tuang tu penyoy ka.
Syase.
Ha, sulai bed akan kuno ke caka encek akan kuno sini bagi ai. Singkat bagi ID jong pi penyoy ketika ada nak COVID-19. Hentan kamban ne lupa akan kuno ke registration. Instantly ya tu ke caka ketika.
Kata ti khubor babae kanya nga. Ay to kata sekendo mo.
Awak boleh kerja.
Nakirki ban simno ketika ya da mentak sini. Mapipan, what I doubt you, simi ketika ya da krem depan sab issue ekopor.
National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.
Ni ban ngam so shat na do nen kasi ngamut thlai ba ngam sa shat tang ba ngam so pheri e
Chayo.
nga so talot nga smo so kriat nga thlai nga don kam le check up
Kapan toy mình check up. Kapan toy. Saja mi. Kani kadai ke jengkala sun beneng.
ni ban jerho da kisi bat ka kriat nga don kam le check up pe ya to ka phone udan u helpline number ba ong pi kong asam ni
Onam le bakla kembali mangamo. Ada mapi dia manu nak yeng yo pi. Kidon ka jing sitom. Kum kejar ho kesit penhiar smuthaj duna ka jingring men sem duna ke bor jing mat ke bor jing sama si sendan kedai man sat slung ilade. Pat kedai balik test no ilade no Covid-19. Deng artli kimas hayeng ru atong ikbah hayeng ken le kumjo.
Ngadan bok bangalayo jingkat nai shem kabu tes ladi bat wat jing rap kerke lada dan kam haba fidan kum kanu ke jingpang ken mau ke jing sumari ladi kadai kadawai.
Issued in public interest by National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.
Mahmoud! Hey, Mahmoud! Where are you? You gotta be careful.
Why are you shouting?
Aren't we supposed to go for COVID-19 vaccination today?
Oh, just a sec. I will get ready.
Stop! You're not ready as yet.
Now, what happened?
As per the government's new safety measures, you should be wearing a double mask in order to fight against the new variant of COVID-19.
Double mask?
Yes, a double mask. A surgical mask and a cloth mask on top of it.
Okay, let me get one quickly. Okay, now I'm all set to fight back this COVID-19.
That's right, my warrior friend. Let's reclaim our lives. And remember, you don't need to wear a double mask if you're wearing an N95 mask.
National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.
We welcome you back to this discussion, and we'd like to thank panelists again, Mr. Mark Stone, lifelong entrepreneur and founder, CEO Avenues, Ms. Jemima Marak with Anand Foundation, and Mr. Kunal Modani with Gold Gym. We were supposed to have Mr. Kerlang Mangyang with us. He's an economist and an entrepreneur, but unfortunately, because of unforeseen circumstances, he was not able to be with us. We hope to have him probably in the weeks to come. So back to our discussion. For those who have joined us, the theme for today is COVID-19 Livelihood Lessons, Adaptability and Resilience. Let me tell you what we've had. This great conversation that we've had has been very interesting. And we talk about how we can bounce back to normal life and how livelihood must go on as we live alongside COVID. So now let's probe further into what our panelists have to say. I'll start again with Mark. So just to continue the conversation, Mark, how do we navigate COVID in our workplace? Because that's your area of focus. Whether it is in the college, the government office, university, schools, because schools definitely will be a bit challenging because you've got a lot of under 18, under 16 there, and also small business. I think in my mind, we would like to also learn from you. How do we reconfigure our systems? Because we're talking about COVID appropriate behavior and behavior change. And how do you try and change something that is mentally fixed, And of course, on top of that, you also have this problem and challenge of vaccine hesitancy. So the art of convincing and various community respond to living with the virus. I'd just like to hear from you.
Kit, that's a whole universe of discussions. But I'm going to try and condense it into 3 points because I do want to give respect to the paucity of time here. I think we're wrapping up in a few minutes.
Yes.
All right. Let me get started with the crisis of leadership right now. When I talk about a crisis of leadership, I'm not speaking about at state level or at a political level at all. I think the state government and the political class have done their best to cope with the challenges that have presented themselves to us quite unexpectedly, and in fact coped quite well, in my opinion. What I'm talking about is the crisis of leadership in teams, in businesses, in livelihood generation. I specifically want to address three keywords here, and I think I'll leave it at that. The first thing I want to look at, especially when we're talking about coming back into the office space or coming back into the livelihood you were originally generating for yourself. If you're working in a team, if you're working for a large organization, but more importantly, if you're working for an intimate team, a very close team, a small knit team, the word culture has now such a huge meaning. Culture now encompasses so many things. What are the values you bring into work? What are the values you bring into the new normal? For example, as most of you know, Kunal, at your gym, I don't know how it runs. I mean, I wish I had the privilege of attending a session there someday. But for any other business that's actually doing the rounds right now, especially small teams, Jemima in the rural areas, you will know that there's this clear distinction between those who are aware, that's one group, but don't choose to do what's not necessary. There's another group that is not aware at all and just follows what the example is around you. And there's a third group that knows what must be done and enforces what must be done, whether you like it or not in the workspace. Now, as a leader, you have this choice. Are you pro-choice? And I mean that in a very positive way. I mean, are you supporting the choices of your team? Number two, you also have to consider the wider context of the space you're in. Are you a citizen-facing service? Are you dealing with people all the time? Because if you are, then the culture of your organization, the fit now with the new normal, has to be completely aware of the impact you might have as a citizen-facing business or service on the health, livelihoods, and perhaps life itself of the people you're working with. And third, if you're in the education space, I mean, it is such a challenge because for the last 2 years, I'm going to say about 2 years, 18 months now, we've had to find a solution to the idea that a whole generation of young people have missed out on a year or a whole year of academic sessions in person. There were young boys and girls who entered class 11 and are now graduating this year who have not seen their batchmates in person. I mean, there are sessions across campuses and schools where teachers have had to actually find a way to address the fact that there are the haves and the have-nots, those who have the devices and those who don't, who have access to them. There's just so many conflicts of how you actually generate content and push that to your students. But I want to talk about this word again, culture, in educational establishments, in small businesses, in large organizations, and in civic society, civil society. I'm calling it civic because now we're talking about sanitization and hygiene, but civil society. How are we all playing a role in creating a culture that enables each of us to be safe, to allow us to keep earning our livelihoods? We are each responsible for the decision to either expand that culture into greatness or shrink into the mediocrity of not concerning yourself with your choices and the impact that your choices have on the people you work with. So I really want to drive this point home to the leaders who are watching this in your organizations. What is the culture that you are choosing to bring in, not just by virtue of a written order or a statement or a slap on the wall, but by the example that you set? Are you setting in place examples that allow social distancing to be maintained? Are you ensuring that masks on are not masks off the moment you sit down for a cup of tea together? Are you ensuring that when you walk into a client's office, the first thing you do is hello or a good morning? We maybe do a fist bump, has become the thing we do at Avenues. We meet anybody. And then, of course, we quickly sanitize our knuckles. But the point is, what are the new experiences you are bringing into your teams that will allow you to work within the norms that are now expected of any citizen-facing organization? Health, your impact on the world around you, and the example you set, not just as a business or a community leader, but the team that you work with has to also go out and set examples. What are they doing to lead the way? And whether we like it or not, all it takes is for a sudden spike, a small little epidemic to begin again, for the pandemic to suddenly show its dirty face, and for us to all be scared for what happens if there's a third wave. The second word I want to speak about is consistency, Kit. We've talked about the culture. What is the culture we're all trying to promote as leaders? But as team players and as people who are earning a livelihood anywhere, whether it's in the rural or urban spaces, I want to make this distinction. There seems to be a consistency gap with words, actions, and efforts on the ground. You might say, I believe in this and I shall do this, but am I consistently doing it in the workspace? Or am I conveniently forgetting it just because the moment suits it? I mean, I'm a victim of this too. A few days ago, our team and I were traveling in a district in the Garo Hills to graduate a group of young boys and girls who have willingly, voluntarily, with parents' acknowledgements, come back into these training oases, we call them. These life beds of life skills and soft skills in the districts. And the joy you see when you see young people coming together after having been locked away for so long, that light is on in their eyes, the happiness to be in touch with each other, that human connection that we as educators are so scared will be lost if the world continues like this. We cannot just be device to human being. It has to be human to human. At the end of the day, that's what living and I think meaning is about. Collective belonging. We all belong to each other. But being able to see that, and the consistency of young people, mind you, when a young person is brought into an environment where you, as a leader, set an example, it is followed most consistently. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Because I think that is empathy in practice. They understand better than we do at our age what it means for my actions to have an impact on my friend who's sitting next to me. But there's also this very clear reality that in the rural populations where we have green pockets, where there are very little cases, perhaps none at all at the moment, these harsh realities have been very quickly forgotten. And while there are certain norms that have to be put in place for education establishments, for young teams working together, for organizations, those norms are quickly being forgotten because, hey, we're back to normal, we're emerging. So consistency, Kit, is really critical here. So culture and consistency is where I want to leave this.
Yes, valid point, Mark. I remember the word consistency. And, I had to ask and put a universal question to have that kind of universal responses from you. Because there's something
I'd love to pitch in more, but I want to respect everybody else's time here, Kit.
But that was a universe of a response. So, but now I'll go to Jemima's universe and see what you bring from the village. So, Jemima, COVID is going to be here, perhaps for a long haul, and and a farmer has to live with it. So this part of the panel discussion is more about what next and the hope that we can mentality, right? So is it possible for a farming community to thrive in the midst of COVID?
All right. Before I answer that, I just want to add a little bit to what Mark was saying, or share about the scenario in the village when he was talking about leadership and teamwork. Now, for example, when he was talking about masks and sanitization, these are completely alien activities, completely alien concepts, especially in the rural area where, even cancer, for example, until and unless you visit an urban area, you are not aware of illnesses or, dangers of the world that we live in. So it's like they live in a cocoon of greens and browns and nature. So to be introduced to a whole bunch of alien activities, for a lot of them, especially the older generation and the very younger the little ones, was difficult, asking them or explaining to them why, having your mask on and sanitizing yourself regularly, washing hands, it could save their lives. So when Mark was talking, I was just remembering all of that and, thinking about our people there. Now coming back to the question that you've asked, Kit, see, when we were talking about resilience in the first half of the show, the farmers there, as they had mentioned, they have, the food security is there in the farm, in their backyards, in their garden. However, the economy was hit. Their economy was hit, and then they are unable to access anything else, health or education. Everything. Their life was just put on hold. So, but in spite of that, they were able to create systems where, like the barter system. Even now, when you're talking about, whether the farmer can thrive, yes, indeed. Now, if you look at the situation around the world, I think everybody in every family, we now prioritize survival. We're not looking at, the latest fashion. I don't think a lot of people are buying the latest gadgets. More people are, looking to just survive. So there's food. Food is everybody's priority. If you cannot access food from outside, you've learned to create. So you have a lot of YouTube videos on how to make your own cookies, how to make your own bread, or how to cook butter chicken even. So like that, I think even the farmers, we are now slowly introducing different activities that can help, reduce the wastage, reduce loss, and also at the same time increase their source of income. So through our organization, we are connecting the farm producers to various markets locally as well as the national at the national level. So we have started supplying pineapples, which are in plenty in the Remark area. We started supplying pineapples to, say, Delhi and Mumbai. And we also try to ensure that we are not, there's no additional investment in terms of, packaging. So we looked around for, local building material, creating baskets, the basket weavers, and then the bamboo crates, things like that. Thus, we were able to provide not only livelihoods for some of the young people in the village. At the same time, we were able to reach out to a lot of farmers and help them to sell their stuff. We also had, we met a lot of wonderful people along this journey, like the staff of SpiceJet, for example. When they found out that this is something that we are trying to do, help the farmers sell their produce outside, fresh produce that might get spoiled if you have to send it by road. So they offered, subsidies, and at that time, we had major help from them, a lot of support from them, not just the SpiceJet team, but then also, even our local transport. Many of them, after finding out that this is what we're trying to do, many of them looked for ways to help us, not only save resources, but also to increase or expand our project, our work. We also had, say, for example, we had not just the dryers, teaching them how to make powder, say, out of ginger or mint or black turmeric. marketing various producers that are available there, but also connecting them to the local consumers here through, say, local entrepreneurs who are, looking for local farm producers. So it was really nice being able to connect or getting to know people who are very supportive and looking for local stuff. Apart from that, we also have started an aqua school, ADTS, Aqua Entrepreneurs Development Training School. So to help many of the fish farmers in the area. Now it's because it is in the plains. A lot of the families there have their own ponds, but fishing here in the state is seen, or is largely still seen as a sport. Now we have encouraged them to make it a source of livelihood. We all are aware that the fish that we consume in the state, most of it comes from outside the state. Now sometimes we get fish that is, say, maybe 8 days old or 10 days old, but because it was on ice, many of us are unaware. And so because of situations like that, where we have a lot of health issues already, and then now when COVID has made us all so aware of the need for healthier food, immunity boosters. So we, by connecting the farmers who are the producers of organic, healthy, immunity boosting food, we were able to help create bridges and markets for them, linkages for them.
I think very valid points made by you there are the words I can take home. Value addition, collaboration, and local markets. And thank you very much for that. I'd like to bring Mr. Modani now. Just looking at the business community and how it has learned to adapt, itself, or has it learned to adapt itself? And on the other hand, when you talk about adaptability, I think vaccination is also key, and we're talking about building confidence around, the validity of vaccination. So, how do you handle your business, Kunal? Because business will never be the same. What is the way forward for business? I'm not just talking about big business, but small business by the roadside, and even at your level and levels above, much more above. So just please share your thoughts. I think your mic is muted.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, what I look at it is as adaptability is the key now, and the faster you adapt, and then only you can thrive. Otherwise, you're bound to just fail, because the dynamics have changed so much that every day there is something new happening. So you cannot just loosen your guard at any point. So to be in the market, to be in the business, you have to be 110% there, and you just cannot let your guard loose. That's the key to it. And if you're not adaptable and your response time is late, and you're going into a lot of processes, you're bound to fail. Because previously every organization was doing that. There were a lot of processes. People used to go from here to Delhi to take approvals. Now everything is happening to the virtual platform, which has been a boon to it. So we've cut down cost of corporates to a certain limit. That's where they've cut down traveling cost, where they've cut down coffee, canteen stuff, air conditioning costs, electricity costs. So, and the efficiency is still 70%, people working from home. So I think that the adaptation has kept them in the business. If they would have thought and waited, that COVID would get over sometime and we'll get back to office, so they would have all been running out of business now, and the economy would have been in a much more bad shape. So that's the key. What I feel to the adaptation is you have to be quick and responsive.
Yes. So we almost come to the end of this panel discussion, and time is running out. And I would also like to give you 1 minute sheet each for your closing remark, starting with Jemima, and I would request Kunal to come in and Mark to come in after Jemima. So your 1 minute starts now, Jemima.
All right. Thanks, Kit. And I'm all right. I just want to quickly say that the farmers are now on top of the food chain. When I say we, I represent the farmers. We are now the ones who are able to feed the world, and we're looking at even at the national level how farmers are fighting for their rights. I think it is important for the entire state and nation, and us as individuals also, to now get our priorities right in terms of who can we support, who do we look for support. And while the farmers are willing and ready to feed the rest of the world, to feed us, I think it is important also that we extend our support not only through by buying local, but also from the government side through the policy making. I think now is the time where we make a lot of changes to make this world farmer friendly. I think I would like to say that.
Thank you, Jemima. Kunal, you can come in.
So basically, I would come in for vaccine hesitancy, which has been like the key in many states across the country. So we were facing a similar challenge in our organization where 50% of the people were ready to get vaccinated, 20% were fence sitters, and 30% were against vaccination. So we got them on board, and the fence sitters didn't take time to get convinced. They initially there was some hesitancy, and then they got vaccinated. But the 30%, where we used a tool where we called in doctors to explain to them, and had regular counseling sessions with them. And one very important question which I asked them is that all the parents in the organization, whether they've been giving vaccines to their kids since they were born, and have they even properly heard of certain of the diseases which are there. Japanese encephalitis, I cannot pronounce it correctly also, but schools say we need it and we send our kids to school to get it. So have we ever compromised on that? No. So I asked this question and I did not get an answer from anybody. There is no answer that my kids are vaccinated. Whatever is there on the card is already full. I've paid some extra amount, and here I'm getting a vaccination for free. There is hesitancy. Yes. Why? So I asked them to get back home, ask their parents, whoever has brainwashed them, convinced them not to take their vaccine. But I couldn't get the answer. And ultimately, over a period of time, when the doctors were coming in and speaking to them and telling them the deaths happening due to non-vaccination, maximum 80-85% of the deaths in the hospital happening due to non-vaccination, then the hesitancy was going back. So asking anybody that, why have you given your kids all the vaccines since the time they were born? So
Thank you.
I think everybody can use that word.
Yes. Thank you, Kunal. That's another way of approaching, and thank you for sharing your story. Mark, your 1 minute starts now as a closing remark.
I think I would just want to talk about the word choice now. We are talking about adapting to what is a reality in our lives. Whether it's COVID-19, whether it's a pandemic of another nature, whether it's a mutation in the future, we cannot say for certain what's going to hit us next. What we do know is what we've learned. And what we've learned is your personal awareness of your choices has a direct impact on the livelihoods of other people. If you're going to be leading, lead by example. If you're going to be following follow that example. And if you feel that the example set is wrong, question it, ask for clarity. Make sure that you're doing what's best within your teams, within your setups, within your institutions, within your frameworks to allow for livelihoods to continue. We are each personally responsible for the choices we make, but the choices we make have a larger impact on our entire community. So whether it is the ability to take a vaccine, both jabs, whether it is not taking it and then being brave enough and bold enough to understand that you have to test every 10 days, or if it is just simply the idea that you want to exclude yourself from what is now new normal and just be a recluse, the choice is ours, really. So if you're an educator, please remember that young people need to connect again. Give them that privilege, give them that joy to be able to come back into the classrooms with safety. Keep your distances, keep your protocols in check. If you're someone who is in a rural setting, understand that just because there are no cases around, and we've seen it in our own teams, I also just want to take a very quick 10 seconds to commend a division under our organization. In fact, the 14410 team is led by Avenue staff members and young people who have been heading this for the last 8 months. Way to go to the team. I'm so proud of them for the efforts and the hard work, night and day, 24/7, against the grain of what everybody said was unemployment. They chose to step in and step up. It's efforts like this, choices like this, that allow livelihoods to continue. For us as entrepreneurs, for the government as policymakers, and for as administrators who are in charge of ensuring that those policies are deployed, all we can say is you have our support. We wish you the best, and be wise with your choices, and we'll try to do the same. Thank you, Kit.
Thank you, Mark. I think when you talk about pro-choice,
I want to add one thing to what Mark has said.
Yes, just 30 seconds.
Just 5 seconds. The important feature COVID has created is health responsiveness. The response to healthcare has increased, and the time now is like quick. So we've got so many helplines, so many places. So that's commendable throughout the country what we have done, and teams like Mark Avenues has done in Shillong. Congratulations, Mark. Good work.
Yes, and in fact, I'd like to congratulate all the three of you. You know, you've done fantastic work in your own area, and of course, when you talk about pro-choice, you know, it can go left or right. But I'm glad that in this case, it's pro-choice alongside, you know, collective responsibility. So thank you, Mark, for that clarity. And I'd like to thank again, you know, the panelists. Ms. Jemima Mara, thank you very much for sparing your time. Kunal Mordani, thank you very much. And Mark,
Pleasure.
thank you very much for your time and sharing your thoughts.
Thank
and
you,
of course, I'd like to thank all of you out there who have joined us for this session. Now, you know, it is time to announce the winners from last week's Quiz Wiz 2.0. And the participants were many, but we had to, you know, spin the wheel and to select the three lucky winners. And I believe that we are ready to spin the wheel once again and see who these winners are. And so let's see, the wheel is on the screen, and I think it's going to spin now. And the first winner is Pinchem Nikla. Congratulations, Pinchem Nikla. You are the first winner there. And let's see another winner. Let's spin the wheel. The wheel is spinning. The wheel is spinning, and we have a second winner, Pinchai Lang Karbani. Okay, congratulations, Pinchai, for the win. And let's find out who the third winner is. The wheel is spinning. The wheel is spinning. Okay, who's the third winner? Panalal Das. Okay, congratulations, Panalal Das, for winning, and all the three of you. In fact, We are so happy that you participated, and I encourage, if there's another quiz whiz, we encourage all of you to tell your friends to participate, because I think the question that was put up during last week was, what is the incubation period of corona virus infection? Okay, and the answer was between 1 to 14 days. And I'd like to congratulate again to all the 3 winners. Yes, we've come to the end. If you have any need for support or help of any kind, please call the toll-free number 14410. And for all COVID information, please download the Behavior Change app. If you're vaccinated once, please book your date with the vaccine, okay, and mark it on your calendar, and just to make sure that you get complete protection. Thank you once again to each one of the panelists and to all of you who have joined us. This panel discussion is brought to you by the National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya. Until next time, this is Kit Shangpriang signing off. Good night.
During this period of uncertainty, we would like to say thank you to all our frontline workers who leave their homes every day so that we can stay safe in ours. We are proud of each and every one of you who go above and beyond to carry out your duties, for keeping us healthy, for keeping us safe. Because of you, we are hopeful for the future. Because of you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have enough words to express our gratitude for your sacrifices. We can only acknowledge it and say thank you. National Health Mission, Government of Meghalaya.